My name is Chris Santiago, Vice President of Solutions Engineering here at Unravel Data. Throughout my 7-year career here, I've had the luxury to work with some of the largest data customers looking to provide optimization and cost for some of the logos that you see here. Today's topic, cloud cost control, strategies for scaling data operations without breaking the budget on Databricks. So what I'd like to first start our conversation on here is probably a typical customer journey for some of the audience here who have been using Databricks and have been trying to scale their data operations. Maybe you've started off with some migration use cases. So maybe you were looking to modernize some legacy workloads in your organization by migrating to a very powerful data platform like Databricks. Maybe this might have been a Hadoop to Databricks migration, or you might have just started your journey from within Databricks itself. And all use cases, you probably started small and wanted to prove the tech from a performance standpoint, but also a cost standpoint as well. And so maybe you've started off your journey with some initial use cases that were pretty small in nature from a POV perspective. Once you were convinced that the technology works and things were not too cost prohibitive, maybe you were starting to think about operationalizing this. So setting up some dashboards, maybe some teams. I see a lot of FinOps and data ops teams get introduced during this stage. And really, you're looking to set up some monitoring capabilities so that way you can make sure your existing workloads that you've onboarded so far are working performance, you're getting in front of stability issues, and things are cost effective from that standpoint. Last but not least, a lot of organizations are thinking about scale. So things are starting to come in place. You may have some governance and guardrails in place. You may have some dashboarding, reporting set up. And really now you're trying to just add more workloads and just drive additional value out of your data initiatives. If you are on this call and you're looking to scale, then maybe this next slide may resonate with you. And I like to say these are things that I've noticed with a lot of organizations that are trying to scale, but are getting inhibited. The first one here would be just balancing cost and performance. So things such as just compute trade-offs. So knowing, for example, what type of instances should I select so that way I can get performance if I'm a data engineer, but also at the same time being cost effective. It's not straightforward. And a lot of times organizations think that just continuing to add more resources, that's going to solve the problem. In many cases, that's not the case. It could also be just balancing cost performance in terms of infrastructure and efficiencies. So things such as auto termination, auto scaling. How do I use this effectively? Some of the newer features today, taking advantage of serverless compute. Does that make sense for your workload, for your organization? A lot of these things are pretty complex, and trying to figure out what's the best from a cost and performance standpoint sometimes leaves customers to not bring on additional workloads until they can get a better handle of that. Next, I also see a lot of folks or customers struggle from a technical expertise standpoint. So things such as just tuning demands. So being able to tune a distributed system like Databricks, it requires a deep knowledge of distributed computing. Things that, say, for example, your SQL analysts may not have the background for, and it may be very confusing for them. There could also be platform-specific skill sets. So there's a steep learning curve for Databricks-specific services like Delta Live Tables, or when to use some of their newer compute technologies like Photon. When is it most cost-effective? When should I not use it? Has been an inhibitor to scale for a lot of organizations. It could also just be, how do I use system tables in an effective way? And without the expertise of this can become very cumbersome for a lot of organizations. Last but not least, workload alignment challenges. So things such as over-engineering risks, leveraging, for example, all-purpose compute clusters when job clusters are a more cost-effective option, as well as performant as well. There could also just be challenges just understanding why a pipeline had failed. So pipeline troubleshooting. So complexities that are introduced when maybe using other orchestration tools like Azure Data Factory, Airflow, which make it difficult to track why pipelines fail, reducing trust in the stability of the system. All on top of this, you have workloads that are continuously changing. You simply cannot just set it and forget it and think that if I spent maybe like 1 month out of the year to tuning, that it's going to solve all your challenges. That is simply not the case. So those are some of the inhibitors to scale. Now, what I'm going to do next here is I'm going to go and show how a purpose-built platform like Unravel can solve some of these inhibitors. What I'll do here is first start off by showing Unravel as a data ops, FinOps observability / actionability platform purpose-built for Databricks. And so we easily connect into your Databricks environment through the use of APIs, system tools. So nothing intrusive from that standpoint. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually focus in on this optimize tab. And what Unravel's doing is it's using its purpose-built AI to find where all the inefficiencies are in an organization that are preventing them from scaling effectively. If we take that first example of balancing cost versus performance and understanding, hey, what are some of the things that I can do from a compute standpoint? I'll use that as a first use case here. And the first thing I'll highlight this is highlighting this inefficiency that we're seeing in my playground small environment. This one is node right sizing, and it's optimizing cluster sizes for cost savings on recurring runs. So now I'm thinking about my Databricks jobs that are running maybe daily, maybe a few times a day, maybe it's every few minutes, and understanding the type of compute that I should be using here when maybe my data volumes are continuously going up and down can become very challenging for a lot of organizations. What Unravel can do is we can quickly highlight if there are over-provisioned insight types, in this case, this node right sizing, which is pre-selected for me. And I can see all the jobs that have an inefficiency of this node right sizing recommendation. The other thing I'll highlight here is you've got these runs here. And again, this is my small environment. But one thing to highlight when I start talking about the actual recommendations itself. Now, if you want to see the recommendations at this job level for the 4 runs that I've seen here, what I'm going to do here next is I'm actually going to click on this over provisioned, and I'll quickly just go to the summary here to highlight a few things here. So I'm seeing that 3 out of my 4 runs have been impacted by this node right sizing inefficiency. If I want to know what that is, I can see this node right sizing is necessary when container resources are underutilized, helping to optimize cluster instances and improve cost efficiency. So I can see that this job actually has some potential recommendations for us to solve for cost and performance. If I'm looking for the evidence, I can go ahead and click on this impacted runs, and I can see exactly what happened. I can see here that I've got a resource surplus of 4 cores and 14 gigs of memory for 3 out of my 4 runs. So there's some cost performance, or there's some cost optimization things that I could potentially do here. Now, in order for me to understand what I can do, I'll go into this remediation tab here. And if I scroll down here, we can actually see what these cost savings are. So changing instance types from D3 to L4. Same thing with this D3 to L4. I can see that I'm actually saving 20% driver node and 41% from a worker node perspective. And so if I go over here and actually show out of my $1.38, I can actually unlock 73 cents, which is a pretty big percentage just by changing the node types here. Makes it very easy for me to go ahead and choose the right thing, so that way I'm being cost optimized by picking the right instances here, but also trusting Unravel that it's done its analysis, that I know that it's not going to impact my performance of these jobs. Last but not least, it's looking at n number of runs. So whether this is 4, whether this is 400, whether this is 4,000, the analysis is done at that scale. And so for folks that just simply don't have the time to be looking for these things, this is where we come in, and we can really give you that great recommendation that not only gives you a cost optimized, but is also keeping performance in mind. So that way you can take these recommendations and scale effectively. All right, good stuff here. The next thing I wanted to talk about is technical expertise. So if you've been using Databricks for some time now, you're going to know that there's specific things that are only to Databricks. Maybe you have a Spark background, but on Databricks world, Photon is something that's very specific to their framework. And a lot of times I see a lot of organizations that don't trust just turning on this Photon compute engine. For folks who are not super familiar with Photon, it's a faster version of Spark, so to speak, that's very specific to Databricks. And they tout that this is something that can really not only make things super performance a lot faster, but you can also get a lot of the cost benefits. The challenge here is that Photon is in generally about 30% more than just the regular Spark engine. And so I've seen a lot of organizations just not 100% trust their Databricks team to say that, hey, Photon is going to solve all their answers. And I see a lot of organizations just turn it off, right? Because they don't know what to test. They don't have the expertise or the time to be testing these things. And so it just becomes something that is just never enabled when a lot of organizations can really benefit from a Photon perspective. Now, what I'm going to do next here is I'm actually going to go in and see what this Photon Insight actually does for my jobs in my Databricks environment here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to easily just click on this Enable Photon. I'm going to go ahead and just scale out my size here. Let's go ahead and pick maybe this job run over here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this insight type, over provisioned. I'm going to go ahead and, let me actually go back and select another one here. I'll pick this first one here. Over provisioned. I'm going to go ahead and, hold on one second. I must have picked the wrong one here. Let me go ahead and go back to my homepage here. And I'm going to go ahead and expand my horizons here with 90 days. I'm going to go into my Enable Photon here. So this can boost query performance with Photon acceleration. I'm going to go ahead and expand this for the 90 days again. Make sure that I have just the right sizing with Photon selected. And what I'll next do here is actually go into my over provisioned here. And now, very similar to what you were seeing before, that right sizing instance. But this time, this is actually looking to see, hey, does Photon actually make sense for this particular workload? Now, this one will come up if there is Photon was detected as just not being in used. And Unravel is not going to just point out that you're not using Photon, and so you should just enable it. It's actually going to do the analysis and say, is this the right fit? So eliminating for your organization to have technical experts to know how to test this stuff. Again, very, very powerful. Again, and you can only get this by using a purpose-built AI actionability platform like Unravel. Now, what this is telling me is that I've got an over-provisioned instance cluster, very similar to what we were seeing before. If I go to my impacted runs here, I can see the number of runs here, so I can see the over-provisioned here. If I go to this remediation here, you'll see that we're showing instances that are sized appropriately. And we also provide some other things in terms of turning on Photon enabled from this particular standpoint. And by enabling this, what is the potential savings? So we can see what those savings are. And we can also see what's the risk of the score of these insights. So what is, is this low, medium, high of actually getting the value from within turning on Photon here? And in this case, we can see that there's a lot of potential benefits from a cost standpoint if we go ahead and enable Photon. And so this becomes very powerful for organizations that simply just don't have the time to test out all the new features of Databricks and can rely on a third-party cloud agnostic platform to be able to tell, hey, which jobs are actually useful for using Databricks specific features like Photon. One other example I can show here too is if I go into this instantly realizable again and look at some of these auto termination settings. So auto termination, again, very specific to all-purpose clusters within a Databricks environment. And if I just look at the recommendation here for this all-purpose cluster here, what it's telling me here is that I could save, again, this is a very small environment, but I could save money if I just simply change my auto termination setting from 20 minutes down to 10 minutes. And what Unravel is doing under the covers, it's learning the patterns of the jobs that are being run in this particular environment. And it's basically saying 20 minutes, too long. You could actually do this with 10 minutes based on how the user is using this all-purpose cluster. And so again, it's eliminating the guesswork out of your organization to not know, not to be experts of when and when not to use some of these Databricks features for cost of performance. And we eliminate that guesswork by providing that to you right out the gate. All right, last but not least, workload alignment challenges, and more specifically, over-engineering risks. This next use case, what I'd like to do is actually show, are there things that we can do where we could actually save based off of, hold on one second here. We won't do this one for now. I lost my, okay. What we'll do next here is we'll actually look at, I was looking for an example here, and this is how you know it's live. Some of the things we can do from an all-purpose versus job clusters. And we do have some reports capabilities where we can actually show patterns where you see a lot of folks using all-purpose clusters when they actually could be using job clusters. And what I mean by that is folks that are scheduling jobs where code doesn't change into all-purpose clusters. Now, why is that an issue? Well, that's an issue because a lot of times we don't need that all-purpose running if we can just go ahead and just schedule these jobs. And more importantly, that all-purpose cluster tends to be 3 times more expensive than job clusters. And so identifying that pattern when we see a lot of folks actually doing that is one thing that we can do. And then from there, we can actually show the savings from that perspective. I guess my environment here doesn't have that specific example here, but this is what this report would have been able to do. And again, it's something that you can do from an Unravel perspective. What I'll do in its place is talk about some of the pipeline troubleshooting challenges that organizations have. And what I'll do is I'll move into this workflows tab here. And I see time and time again where I see organizations that are using multiple orchestration tools. So maybe they're using Azure Data Factory, maybe they're using Airflow, and they're also incorporating this into some of the Databricks workflows because, even their built-in orchestration is becoming a lot more powerful, and folks don't, want to continue to use maybe ADF for overall orchestration and still use this Databricks workflows as well. Well, what becomes challenging is you've got multiple orchestration services which have their way of figuring out where things might have failed, and it becomes very cumbersome for a lot of organizations. Well, with Unravel, what we can do here is we can actually just look for jobs that fail, and Unravel can actually give you a synopsis as to why some of these pipelines have failed. And so for this example, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into this particular job. I'm going to go ahead and click on this failure. And so what this is telling me is that I've had a bunch of jobs that have failed due to, in this case, driver out of memory, very common. If I wanted to see the evidence, I go into this impacted runs here, and I can actually see what happened. And in this case, all 4 of my jobs failed because I had, some out of memory issues here, right? And we also have the remediation steps here to be able to go and show whoever owns the SLAs for this data pipeline to try out some of these remediation steps to get them out of failure and back into successful job runs. So we've covered a lot here. What we first talked about is just how customers get to the scaling standpoint. From there, we talked about inhibitors to what stops customers from scaling their Databricks environment. And we've covered in a demo how life can actually be better if you're trying to scale and do things without breaking the budget but still getting the value by scaling your Databricks investment. What I'd like to do next here is give you or offer up a free Databricks health check. So go ahead and click on that link over there, and you can go and secure 50% more workloads, identify and eliminate wasted spend, and increase the productivity of your data teams. So what I'm going to do next here is I'm going to go ahead and open up the Q&A here. What I'm seeing here is what are some common pitfalls organizations face when scaling their Databricks operations, and how can these be avoided? First and foremost, not understanding how and when to balance performance and cost by using some of the Databricks features. Not having the technical experts like we had talked about, and not doing it in a continuous manner ultimately leads to folks not finding the return on investment that they were expecting, and growth stalls. I've seen that time and time again. The next question here is, how does Unravel's approach to cost management differ from traditional methods, and what specific benefits does it offer for rapidly growing data operations? Well, Unravel was built for modern data stacks like Databricks. So the company has been born in the big data space. And so you won't find other players in the market that are as comprehensive as Unravel when it comes to Databricks specific use cases. So definitely do your homework, but when you're looking to do this at scale at an enterprise level, organizations will select Unravel as their platform of choice. Last but not least here, can you provide examples of how Unravel's AI-powered platform has helped organizations identify and implement cost savings opportunities in their Databricks operations? Yes, I have one in mind. Large financial banking industry. They were pretty early on in their Databricks journey. Well, not early on. They were at the early stage of the scale stage of their Databricks journey. And what they were really struggling with cost predictability. More importantly, they were seeing these huge spikes in cost, and they were not understanding exactly where the stuff was coming from. What they would do is they would actually hire costly professional services. So folks from Databricks, folks from some of their SIs, to really tackle this problem. So they would spend a few weeks, they would go ahead and tackle the problem, think that it was all solved. A couple months later, another problem comes up. And so it's just rinse and repeat of trying to optimize some of the challenging workloads and trying to get in front of it and thinking that this is a set and forget. Well, that was the problem. And when they were looking for a more continuous way of identifying inefficiencies and continuously doing it, they turned to us, Unravel, to be able to look and identify when these inefficiencies were coming up. But then more importantly, how do we equip our support and analysts and data engineers with a solution that can do the analysis for them, prioritize things, and to make sure that they're doing things in a cost-effective and performant manner. And that's where we came in. We were able to provide some of this, or a lot of the inefficiencies, or addressing them through our AI-powered platform. And they were able to finally unblock themselves and feel confident in growing more workloads into their Databricks estate. So those are some of the examples. I can, happy to ask more here, but I do know that I want to give you guys some time back. So again, my name is Chris Santiago. Thank you for joining my webinar here, and I look forward to our conversation next time. Thank you.